Auckland. The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Phil Goff.
Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, is with us this morning. Morning to you, Phil.
G'day, Wammo. How are you going? Did you have a good Waitangi weekend?
I had a great Waitangi weekend. Could have done with a long weekend, but...
yeah, they should have given you a day off today as well, shouldn't they? Well, you just vote Labour and we'll see what we can do for you on that.
Of course, so you were up at Waitangi, of course, with all the pomp and ceremony, but all the goofiness that goes on as well. How would you sum up this Waitangi Day?
Well, it was a great day in the sense that people were out there enjoying themselves. I mean, you know, people aren't focused on the politics of the thing. There was a big battle between within the Maori party, and they're fighting with each other. But people weren't focused on that. I've got to say there was a bit of goofiness. We did the church service in the morning, and you know that's a challenge. You've got to get out of bed at 4 o'clock and stumble up through the dark and go up to the whare at the top. But the last Ngāpuhi speaker got up and he said, "You shouldn't have asked me to speak." So everybody stopped and listened. And then he said, "I haven't said anything about this for 38 years. And we listened even more intently, wondering what the hell he was going to say.
Yeah.
And then it was, there will be body bags in the street. I see the roof of the Beehive on the streets of Wellington. There is going to be an earthquake and a tsunami that will wipe out Wellington. And we thought, gosh, this is bizarre. You know, this is the national, you know, the day you're celebrating your nationhood. And the guy next to me nudged him and he said, "He's got it wrong. It hit Christchurch." But it was kind of a little bit weird. And the church service is generally quite good because you can talk about what makes your nation and why it's so important to have that sense of being a New Zealander. But you always get the oddball person that gets up and gives a speech like that, and it distracts things a little.
But I mean, okay, so you were there because all of the footage I saw of that was from behind, because I think TV3 weren't allowed in there or something, or they didn't pay the fee or whatever. Give us a sense of the guy. I mean, was he? I mean, he was a Maori elder. Did he have some kind of mana about him? Do you think? Were people respecting him? What was the go?
Oh, well, I think people were absolutely bemused. You know, there were three speakers, and the first two speakers, you know, said the things that you would expect to be said. It was kind of oddball, and you know, you could see the other kaumātua cringing as he was speaking. And yeah, look, it wasn't a big deal in the end, but you're there to celebrate your nation's birth date. And the last thing you want is some oddball person talking about, his prophecy. Mind you, he said he didn't know which June, but it would be in June. So we all made a mental note. Well, maybe we'll have a long recess in June for Parliament. But
you never know. I don't know. It might be a little bit strong to call him oddball.
Well, I don't know. Look, if you've got ideas like that, there might be a time and a place where you want to say it, but at the end of a church service, celebrating Waitangi Day wasn't the right place to do it, I can tell you.
Hey, last week there were a few developments with the 2011 election. Of course, the date has been set, which was rather extraordinary, wasn't it?
Well, not really. Look, when you think about it, you've got the World Cup that'll take up October. The traditional date for elections in New Zealand is at the last Saturday in November, unless it gets out of sync if there's an early election. That was about the only date that you could responsibly set, so it certainly wasn't a surprise to me. And because there'd been some speculation about whether the government was going to call an early election before the World Cup, I think it needed to be cleared up. It is clear, and that's the date that all the parties will focus on now.
And, of course, John Key made the step of ruling out Winston Peters as any kind of coalition partner. So really he's set the tone, I think, for the politics of the election.
Yeah, kind of curious, because at the end of last year he was saying, maybe he could work with Winston. So maybe something happened on the beach in Hawaii that caused a revelation that it wasn't going to happen.
Really? Did he say that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, he's on record. There's a transcript around somewhere. He wasn't ruling out Winston Peters at all. Look, I think it was a political thing. I think he was going to say that before Peters ruled him out. The National Party's running on a policy of selling off state assets. Labor is absolutely opposed to that. Nobody thinks actually it's sensible to sell off your best performing assets. And Peters was never going to agree to that. So, John Key can stick with the Maori Party and he can stick with the ACT Party. Those are his chosen coalition partners. What we say is let people decide. They'll vote for who they want to vote for. And then once they've cast their vote, our responsibility is to put together a government, and we'll do that.
Okay. Now let's. I do want to touch on something else that happened last week, because I think you missed an opportunity, and I guess it's one of these tactics that John Key is using, when he appeared on Tony Veach's show. And this whole topic of who's hot and who's not came up and whatnot. And then you were asked about your position on that, and then you came out with something silly like, "Oh, I think she's hot too," or something, but so is my wife. Blah 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 blah.
No, I didn't come out with something silly at all. I was asked what I thought of it, and I said, I'm not into the politically correct brigade. I'm not going to get up and say what's wrong with that, And they said, "Well, who's on the top of your list?" And it was February the 2nd, which was my wedding anniversary, and I said the very obvious thing, well, I've got to put my wife up there, and I do. And then they said, "Well, who do you think's hot?" And I said, "Well, there's a number of people. Elle Macpherson is somebody that I think is just fantastic. So what?" But
John, but hang on. Here's the thing: John Key is the guy that people like because he's an approachable guy around at the barbecue. You're a different sort of political figure. You're a different person, and so he's appealing to the Boof-headedness of New Zealand. Whereas I don't think that you're going to be able to capture that same voter type that he's actually going for. In fact, you're probably more, by heading down that line, alienating the female voters that you probably should be trying to get.
Oh, look, I don't think many women were upset about that. Look, you ask any woman out in the street, well, who's the actor that you think's really hot? And they'll say George Clooney or somebody like that.
Yeah,
fine.
Sure.
What's wrong with that?
Sure. The actual thing that's being said is no problem. This stuff is said every day around the water cooler, around people's work. Yeah. But what about the tone? What about setting the tone for the country? What about setting the tone for leadership?
Oh, look, I don't think setting the tone for leadership is about saying you can't possibly go out and say you think somebody's hot. I mean, what are people?
But, okay, here's the other thing: the fact that he is now appearing weekly on a show with a guy who's known to be a domestic abuser. There was your opportunity right there to bring that up, but instead you went down the same line that he did.
And I wasn't. Look, Wammo, I wasn't going to go there either.
Why not?
I don't think because
he's refusing to go on shows where he's going to get asked hard and critical questions.
Look, that's fine. That's what they were saying up in the Marae at Waitangi. Key came in, he refused to answer any questions, didn't even stop for a cup of tea with us. And people resent that. Yeah, Key should front up and he should answer the hard questions on the hard shows. But I'm not going to go on and say he shouldn't sit in the radio sports broadcast and say he thinks somebody is hot. And I'm not going to dredge up the Veach thing because that's been dealt with. What he did was wrong. I abhor what he did. But we're not going to continue to put him on trial long after the event. I hope that he has learned from that experience, and I hope that New Zealanders are moving on from the age when they think that domestic violence is okay. But I'm not going to go out and try and score political points off that because I don't think that's the right approach to it, Wammo.
I don't necessarily think it's political points. I just think that there's a general kind of Boof-headedness going on, and it's sort of a dumbing down. Why not?
There is a dumbing down there, and yeah, John Key plays up to that. But look, I'm going to focus on the issues that I think are important to New Zealanders. It's about prices rising faster than wages. It's about more and more of our people thrown on the scrap heap of unemployment. It's about the sale of our assets, the hocking off of our farmland overseas. Those are the issues that I'm focused on. I'm not going to worry too much about whether somebody says somebody is hot or the nature of a broadcaster on Sports Live.
There was your answer. Why didn't you say that last week when you were asked? That's the answer.
No. I said what I thought, and I got no regrets about that.
All right.
I've got to catch a plane. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers, Phil. See ya.
See you, mate. Bye.
Phil Goff, their leader of the Labour Party.